pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope. For more than 30 years, it's captured distant galaxies, stars being born and dying. Images that have been as uplifting to the soul as they have been to the mind. Hubble's successor is NASA's James Webb telescope. Unlike Hubble, the £7.5 billion spacecraft will go beyond Earth's orbit, 930,000 miles into deep space. Once in space, it unfurls its sunshield and deploys its giant mirror and instruments. The Space Telescope is much more powerful than Hubble. It'll be able to analyse the atmospheres of worlds orbiting distant stars to see if there are signs of life. It'll also be able to witness the birth of the very first stars. This is a simulation of that critical moment. The purple areas are clouds of hydrogen gas becoming ever denser until they form stars, blazing like fireworks. James Webb is expected to capture images of this really happening.
I'm so excited.
Why are you so excited?
Isn't that just fantastic that as humanity, a tiny little civilization on planet Earth, that we can create a telescope that we can send up into space and peer back to the universe as it was just a couple of 100 million years after the Big Bang.
And some incredible views from space were obtained from these aerials, planted in a small field in Hampshire. These pick up radio waves from distant galaxies. They may not look like much, but astronomers have connected 52 sites just like this one, spread all across Europe. Together, they've captured some of the most detailed pictures from space ever taken. In this image, the galaxy is in the middle. Shooting out either side are jets of material across the expanse of space. It's because of a gigantic black hole inside of it. Astronomers can now see things they've never been able to see before. This is a picture of a galaxy seen through a normal telescope, and here is a standard radio image of it. Although it's a lot brighter, a lot of the detail has been lost. Now compare it with one of the new high-definition images, which is much sharper, showing features inside in unprecedented detail. The brightest area at the bottom shows the location of a gigantic black hole inside this galaxy. It's bright because of the energy released as it's sucking in material around it. Meanwhile, in the deserts of Chile, a telescope was able to see the universe as it really is, filled with a mysterious substance called dark matter. It can't be seen, but this instrument detected dark matter by the way it distorts starlight.
This is a map of matter in the universe.
Astronomers produced this map of how it's spread across the cosmos. It permeates space, accounting for most of the mass of the universe. The bright areas are where dark matter is most clumped together, and it's here that galaxies form. It's our reality shining like gems on an unseen, tangled cosmic web. But the map is not what astronomers expected. According to Einstein's theories, the matter should be slightly more clumped together. Instead, it's smoother and more spread out. Building on the work of Einstein, Carlos Frank was among the scientists who developed the current theory of cosmology.
Hearing now that there may be something not quite right with the theory, but it's very disconcerting, it's very alarming, and in a way frightening to see that maybe my whole life's work might crumble in front of me, but at the same time, it is immensely exciting.
Back in our own solar system, NASA's Perseverance rover landed on Mars.
First look at the surface.
These pictures are from the spacecraft during the final few minutes of its descent. As it nears the surface, clouds of dust and grit are blown around as its thrusters are fired. And from another camera angle, we can see the vehicle lowered to the ground.
Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars.
These were the scenes at mission control. Shortly after, a thoughtful tweet from the rover. "I'm safe on Mars. Perseverance will get you anywhere." It's been drilling into the surface and storing some of the rocks for a future mission to bring back. Some of the samples may contain fossilized evidence of life.
I am not talking about Martian little green men, probably not even fish. We're looking for microbial life, or maybe microbes that have made a little mat or a slime of sorts that you might find on the bottom of a pond. Those are the types of things that are likely to, well, they did exist on Earth 3.5 billion years ago. The question is, did they exist on Mars at the bottom of lakes?
On board is a small helicopter, Ingenuity, which carried out the first ever powered flight on another planet. Back on Earth and boldly going where hundreds of people had gone before,
William Shatner?
Star Trek's Captain Kirk, William Shatner, blasted off from a launch site in Texas. It was a 10-minute flight just 60 miles above the Earth, but enough time to float in zero gravity. Waiting for him on his return, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, whose company developed the rocket system.
What you have given me is the most profound experience I can imagine. I'm so filled with emotion about what just happened. It's extraordinary.
At the age of 90, William Shatner finally reached the final frontier. In physics, there was what could be one of the biggest steps forward for a generation. Scientists believe that there are 4 fundamental forces of nature. One for gravity, another for electricity, and 2 nuclear forces, which control the behaviour of atoms. Together, they explain the way the world works. But in recent years, astronomers began noticing things in space that can't be explained by the 4 forces, such as galaxies spinning faster than they should. And they can't explain why the stars and planets and everything on them, including us, exist at all. The new results suggest there might be a 5th force which could explain some of these mysteries. The result was from Fermilab, a particle accelerator just outside Chicago. Scientists accelerated particles inside this giant ring close to the speed of light. They found something that can't be explained by the current theory of physics at the subatomic level.
I think it's quite mind-boggling, and they have the potential to turn physics on its head. We have a number of mysteries that remain unsolved, and this could give us the key answers to solve those mysteries.
You've heard of electrons? Well, there are similar particles called muons, which are much heavier and spin like tops. In the experiment, they were made to rotate using magnets. The current theory states that they should rotate at a certain rate. Instead, they rotated faster. This might be caused by a mystery force, a 5th force, that in turn is created by another, yet to be discovered particle. In February, a meteorite blazed across the night sky, over the rooftops across the UK. A large chunk of it landed in the driveway of the Willock family, living in Winchcombe in Gloucestershire.
I came out and we looked at this pile of what looked like crushed coal. And so I started even then thinking perhaps it's come down from space.
Security camera footage captured the flight of the meteorite as it flew over Nuneaton, Somerset, Wigan, before it ended up at the Natural History Museum for study.
Winchcombe is very special because it is one of the most pristine materials that we have available on Earth to study. And the thing that's really good about this particular case is that we saw it fall. And so we can use that fireball to kind of track back the trajectory, work out where in the solar system it came from.
A study from the Natural History Museum found that the UK is losing biodiversity so quickly that it's now one of the most nature-depleted places in the world. And that's important because there are rare, long-lost species that can be better suited to the extreme conditions caused by global warming. Many of the crops that we depend on, such as this coffee plant, won't thrive under the increased temperatures predicted by climate change. But these beans from 1873 could provide an answer. They're found in the collection at Kew Gardens here. Not only are they more heat resistant, but they make an excellent brew, with tones of honey and blackcurrant apparently. It's just one example of many of how science, rather than taking us away from the natural world, is bringing us closer to solutions to some of humanity's greatest problems. Millions of tons of sand were shifted to a stretch of coastline in North Norfolk to see if a natural barrier could hold back rising sea levels. It seems to have worked. The homes and businesses are on the front line of rising sea levels. The sand barrier idea is cheaper than building a concrete seawall. This more natural solution could be used to protect more coastal communities.
In a way that making space for water, so allowing natural processes to come back in places where we can do this. I think that's the attitude we need to have, and that we're not going to be able to keep building seawalls and defend.
In 2021, nearly 60 acres of trees were cut down in Northumberland to reduce carbon emissions. It sounds strange, but it was done to save an ancient peat bog, which traps far more carbon than trees ever could.
The building blocks of the peatland are the sphagnum mosses, which themselves, like this one, are absolutely full of water. They're about 90% water.
And that water is why bogs are better at slowing climate change than trees. When plants die in a bog, they don't release all their carbon into the atmosphere because they don't rot completely. Which is why this is good for the environment. There's greater diversity among science students than ever before. But an analysis in March by the Royal Society showed that there was an unacceptably low number of black people among academic staff. 6.3% drop out of their postgraduate studies. That compares with 3.8% of white students. Black people account for just 1.7% of research staff in the UK, whereas they make up 3.5% of the population. And out of 22,745 professors in academia, 155 are black.
We know something's happening within the university. It's that culture that can be quite toxic. It's due to racism. All the statistics show that it's not due to class, it's not due to what school they went to. And that environment and that culture is carried on all the way through the student life cycle and into careers as well.
0.4 of your carbon goes.
In an effort to attract more ethnic minorities, a series of projects were launched across England to encourage them to do PhDs and to support them throughout their research careers. There was a surprising discovery at Canterbury Cathedral. Inside, its stunning windows depict symbolic religious scenes. This series was thought to have been made in the 13th century, but researchers discovered that some of the panels, including this one of the Prophet Nathan, were made much earlier. It's only come to light now because of this device, called a windowlizer. It may not look like much, but it was developed by scientists to be used on location without damaging the glass. It shines a beam onto the surface, which causes material inside to radiate. This radiation contains a chemical fingerprint, from which the researchers worked out its age.
We've been working on this detective story for some time, putting all the pieces in place, and then we finally get an answer, something new, that brings together science and art into one story. It's fantastic.
These are all stories that were recorded at the time they happened here.
The discovery astonished Leonie Seliger, who looks after the stained glass windows here. She believes the redated panels could go back to the mid-1100s and were in place during the great historical events at the cathedral, including the assassination of the then Archbishop Thomas Becket, who features in many of the windows.
They would have witnessed the murder of Thomas Becket. They would have witnessed Henry II come on his knees begging for forgiveness. They would have witnessed the conflagration of the fire that devoured the cathedral in 1174. And then they would have witnessed all of British history.
There's a lot more in store next year in science. The Large Hadron Collider will restart at its highest power ever. The James Webb Telescope will send back its first data, which may include pictures of the first starlight in the universe. And Europe and Russia will send a rover to the Martian surface to search for signs of life. But it's the Earth we'll need to focus on. Its changing climate means that the planet's fate hangs in the balance. But science can provide some of the solutions and give us hope for the future.